I should have seen it coming. The way Jack squeezed my hand a beat too long before letting go, the slight tremor in his voice when he said he needed to share something with everyone, the way Amy wouldn't meet my eyes across the room. But I was too busy being happy, wasn't I? Too busy admiring how the fairy lights transformed my backyard into something magical. Too busy feeling grateful that after years of late nights and sacrificed weekends, my tech startup was finally gaining traction, and I had someone to celebrate with. Someone I thought loved me. Wren looks beautiful tonight, doesn't she? Jack's voice carried across our backyard, and 50 heads turned toward me. Friends, colleagues, family, all gathered to celebrate our engagement. My cheeks warmed under their gaze. I smoothed down the front of my navy dress, the one Jack said brought out the gold flecks in my brown eyes, and smiled back at him. 6 years together, and he still made my heart skip when he looked at me like that. But there's something you should all know, he continued, and something in his tone made my skin prickle. The champagne in my stomach curdled. Amy appeared beside him, her red dress a slash of color against the white fairy lights. My best friend since college, the person who'd held my hair back after too many tequila shots, who'd helped me build my first business plan on napkins at 2 a.m. She slipped her hand into Jack's, their fingers interlacing with practiced ease. The world tilted sideways. Wren and I have grown apart over the past year, Jack said, his voice gentle, as if he were explaining something to a child. We wanted different things. And sometimes you find what you need in unexpected places. Amy's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We didn't mean for this to happen. Didn't mean for what to happen? My brain struggled to process the scene unfolding before me, the murmurs rippling through the crowd, the pitying glances, the way Jack's thumb stroked the back of Amy's hand, a gesture I thought belonged to us. Jack and I have fallen in love, Amy announced, her voice steady where mine would have cracked. We wanted to tell everyone tonight, together. At my engagement party, in my backyard, surrounded by people I'd invited to celebrate my happiness, someone gasped. My sister Regina appeared at my side, her hand finding mine, squeezing so hard it hurt. How long? The question scraped my throat raw. Jack at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. 8 months. 8 months, while I was securing our first major investor, while I was picking out kitchen tiles for the house we planned to buy, while I was sleeping beside him, dreaming of our future. You could have told me privately, I said, my voice unnaturally calm. You didn't have to do this. Amy stepped forward, her expression a perfect mask of regret. We thought it would be easier this way. One announcement instead of having to tell everyone individually. Easier for them. The crowd had gone silent, witnessing my humiliation in high definition. I felt their eyes on me, waiting for the tears, the screaming, the scene they could dissect over brunch tomorrow. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Congratulations, I said, the word tasting like ash. I hope you'll both be very happy. I turned to leave, dignity intact, when Jack called after me. Wren, wait, there's more we need to discuss. I froze, my back to them. More? What else could there possibly be? The Nexus Project, he said quietly. The air left my lungs in a rush. The Nexus Project was my baby, the algorithm I'd been developing for 3 years, the one that could revolutionize how small businesses access capital, the one Jack had helped me refine during late-night coding sessions. I turned slowly. What about it? Amy stepped forward, all business now. The investors are concerned about leadership instability. They've asked Jack to take over as CEO. The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet. You can't take my company. It's not just your company anymore, Wren, Jack said, his voice maddeningly reasonable. We've all put work into it. The investors just want what's best for the project. What's best? As if I weren't best for my own creation. I looked between them, the man I'd planned to marry and the woman I'd trusted with everything, and suddenly saw with perfect clarity. This wasn't just about love, this was a coup. When did you pitch this to the investors? I asked, the pieces clicking into place. Before or after you decided to announce your relationship at my engagement party? Jack's eyes flickered just for a second. That was all I needed to see. I see, I said, and I did. I saw everything now, the late night meetings, the whispered phone calls, the convenient business trips, not just an affair, a calculated takeover. As I walked away, leaving my guests murmuring behind me, Jack caught my arm. His touch, once comforting, now made my skin crawl. Don't make this difficult, Wren, he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. You know how this industry works. It's not personal. I met his gaze and saw something I'd never noticed before, a cold calculation behind those blue eyes I'd once found so honest. Not personal? I pulled my arm free. Then you don't know me at all. In his eyes, I saw the truth. He thought he'd already won, that I would crumble, disappear. He had no idea what was coming. I didn't cry until I was alone in my car, knuckles white against the steering wheel, breath coming in short, painful gasps. Even then, the tears felt wrong, hot and angry instead of sad. I wasn't mourning what I'd lost. I was furious about what they were trying to take. 3 hours later, I sat cross-legged on my living room floor surrounded by the wreckage of my engagement party. I'd changed into sweatpants and an old MIT hoodie, my thinking uniform from the days when I'd first conceived the Nexus algorithm. The dress I'd worn earlier lay crumpled in the corner where I'd thrown it. My phone buzzed for the 37th time. Regina again. I'm fine, I answered without preamble. Bullshit, my sister replied. I'm coming over. Don't. I ran my fingers over my laptop keyboard, not quite pressing the keys. I need to be alone right now. Wren, please, Regina. My voice cracked. I'll call you tomorrow. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and typed in my password. The Nexus project dashboard loaded, showing all our current investors, funding rounds, and development milestones. Jack's name appeared beside mine on too many documents. How had I not seen this vulnerability? I clicked through to our shared drive and found what I was looking for. Photos from the company retreat 6 months ago. There we were, me, Jack, Amy, and the rest of our small team, smiling on a beach in Monterey. I zoomed in on Jack and Amy standing side by side. His hand wasn't touching her, but he was leaning slightly in her direction, his body language telegraphing everything I'd been too blind to see. 2 months after that photo, I'd proposed to Jack during a weekend trip to Napa. He'd said yes with tears in his eyes. Fake tears, calculated tears. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Hello? Wren, it's Leo. Leo Gray from Venture Capital Partners. I sat up straighter. Leo was on the investment committee that had recently funded our Series A round. He was also Jack's friend. They'd gone to business school together. Leo, what can I do for you at midnight after the worst day of my life? He cleared his throat. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. Are you calling to tell me you're backing Jack as CEO too? No. His voice dropped. I'm calling to warn you. There's a board meeting scheduled for Monday morning. They're voting on leadership structure. My stomach dropped. That's in 2 days. Yes, Jack's been lobbying the investors for weeks. He's claiming you've been distracted, that the project needs new leadership to move forward. Weeks. While I'd been planning our wedding, Jack had been planning my ouster. Why are you telling me this? I asked, suspicion creeping in. You and Jack are friends. We're friends, Leo corrected, and I believe in your vision for Nexus. What they're doing isn't right. After hanging up, I paced my living room, mind racing. Monday morning. Less than 48 hours to save everything I'd built. I opened my laptop again and pulled up the company bylaws I'd drafted with such optimism 2 years ago. There it was in Section 7. In the event of a leadership dispute, priority consideration shall be given to the original algorithm developer and primary intellectual property holder. That was me. I'd created Nexus in my apartment, coding until sunrise, surviving on ramen and determination. Jack had come later, bringing connections and business acumen, but the core innovation was mine. I needed proof, documentation, something that showed beyond doubt that Nexus began with me. At 3 a.m., I found myself digging through storage boxes in my closet, searching for my old notebooks. I pulled out journal after journal, flipping through pages of calculations and half-formed ideas, until I found what I needed: my original Nexus sketches, dated 3 years ago, with detailed notes in my handwriting. Before Jack, before Amy, before any investors. As I held the evidence of my creation, my phone buzzed with a text. Amy, we need to talk. Coffee tomorrow? Just us. My laugh sounded hollow in the empty apartment. Just us. As if we were still friends who could meet for coffee and sort things out. I typed back, nothing to discuss. 3 dots appeared immediately. There's more you don't know, Ren. Things Jack hasn't told you. My finger hovered over the block button, but curiosity won out. Like what? Not over text. Meet me at Lighthouse Coffee, 10 a.m. I stared at her message, remembering all the times we'd met at that same coffee shop to brainstorm business ideas. How many secrets had I shared with her over those tables? How many vulnerabilities had I exposed? Now she wanted to meet there again, this time as my betrayer. I should say no, cut all ties, focus on saving my company. But what if she knew something that could help me? What if Jack had revealed parts of his plan to her that I needed to know? Fine, I typed. 10 a.m. I set my phone down and looked at the scattered evidence of my life's work spread across the floor. In less than 48 hours, I could lose everything I'd built. But I still had one advantage Jack didn't know about. He thought he'd broken me, but he'd only shown me exactly who I needed to become to win. Lighthouse Coffee hadn't changed. Same chalkboard menu, same mismatched furniture, same barista with the septum piercing who remembered my order. What had changed was me, sitting at our usual corner table, watching the door like I was expecting an assassin instead of the woman who'd been my best friend for a decade. I'd arrived 20 minutes early to claim the psychological high ground. I wore a crisp white button-down and black jeans. Nothing flashy, nothing that suggested I'd spent an hour choosing an outfit that said, "I'm fine without you." At exactly 10 a.m., Amy walked in. Her eyes found mine immediately, as if she'd known exactly where I'd be sitting. Of course she did. She ordered at the counter before approaching, giving me time to study her. No smudged mascara or guilt-ridden expression. She looked polished, confident, like someone who'd made a difficult but necessary decision and had come out the other side. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I didn't respond, just watched her arrange her things. Phone face up on the table, coffee precisely positioned on a napkin. The familiar ritual made my chest ache with a confused mixture of hatred and nostalgia. "I know you probably hate me right now," she began. "Probably." I raised an eyebrow. "You announced you were sleeping with my fiancé at our engagement party, then tried to steal my company. Hate feels inadequate." Amy flinched. "Good. It wasn't supposed to happen that way," she said, her voice dropping. "Jack promised we'd tell you privately weeks ago, but he kept putting it off, saying it wasn't the right time. And my engagement party seemed perfect, Was that your idea or his? His. Her eyes met mine. I swear, Wren, I didn't know that was his plan until we were already there. I wanted to believe her, which made me angry at myself. Why should I care what you knew or didn't know? The result is the same. The barista called Amy's name. When she returned with her latte, she placed something on the table between us, a small USB drive. What's this? I asked, not touching it. Emails between Jack and the investors. She tapped the drive with one perfectly manicured nail. He's been planning this for months. The relationship, that was real. It happened. But the business move, pushing you out, that was calculated from the beginning. I stared at the drive. Why are you giving me this? Amy's composure cracked slightly. Because I didn't sign up to destroy you. I fell in love with Jack and that was wrong enough, but I never agreed to help him take Nexus from you. Yet here we are. Here we are, she echoed. But you should know what you're up against. Jack told the investors you've been unstable, that you've been making erratic decisions. He's painted you as brilliant but unreliable. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. And what role did you play in this narrative? Amy looked down. I didn't contradict him. The silence between us stretched, filled with the coffee shop's ambient noise, the hiss of the espresso machine, conversations at nearby tables, the bell above the door jingling as customers came and went. There's something else, Amy said finally. Something I don't think Jack knows I know. I waited, my hand now resting on the USB drive. He's been meeting with Gabriela Flores. I froze. Gabriela was a tech industry veteran who'd mentored me when I first started developing Nexus. She'd introduced me to potential investors, helped me refine my pitch. But she and Jack had never gotten along. He thought she had too much influence over me. Why would he meet with Gabriela? I don't know, but they've met 3 times in the past month. The last time was yesterday, right after everything. I slipped the USB drive into my pocket, mind racing. What game was Jack playing? Why should I believe anything you're telling me? I asked. Amy's eyes welled with tears for the first time. Because despite everything, I still care about you. What I did with Jack, I can't undo that, but I can try to stop him from taking everything else from you too. I stood up, unable to sit across from her any longer. If you cared about me, we wouldn't be having this conversation. As I turned to leave, Amy caught my wrist. Wren, wait. There's one more thing you should know. Jack's brother Henry is flying in for the board meeting. Henry? I hadn't seen him in over a year, not since he'd moved to London for work. Jack's younger brother had always been the family wild card, brilliant but unpredictable, and he owned a small but significant stake in Nexus from the friends and family funding round. Which way will Henry vote? I asked. I don't know, but Jack seems confident he has his support. I nodded once, then walked out of Lighthouse Coffee without looking back. Outside, I leaned against the building and took deep breaths of the cool morning air. The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket. Amy's information about Gabriela nagged at me. Why would Jack be meeting with my mentor? Was he trying to turn her against me too? I pulled out my phone and called the one person who might have answers. Gabriela, it's Wren. We need to talk. Her response was immediate and unexpected. I was hoping you'd call. Meet me at my office in an hour. Come through the back entrance. I don't want anyone to know you're here. As I hung up, a notification appeared on my screen. A calendar reminder for tomorrow's board meeting. The subject line Jack had entered read simply, Leadership Transition. Not if I could help it. Gabriela's office occupied the top floor of a renovated warehouse in the industrial district. 5 years ago, she'd taken me here after I'd pitched her my half-formed algorithm idea at a tech conference. Ideas need space to breathe, She'd told me then, gesturing to the open floor plan with its exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. That day had changed my life. Now I slipped in through the service entrance as instructed, taking the freight elevator to avoid being seen. When the doors opened, Gabriella was waiting for me, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You look like hell," she said by way of greeting. "It's been a rough weekend." She nodded once, then turned and walked toward her private office, expecting me to follow. At 52, Gabriella moved with the confidence of someone who'd survived 3 decades in tech and had the battle scars to prove it. Her silver-streaked black hair was pulled back in its usual severe bun. Her outfit, charcoal slacks and a burgundy blouse, as impeccable as always. "I heard what happened," she said once we were seated in her office, the door firmly closed. "The industry gossip machine is working overtime." My stomach clenched. "What are they saying?" "That you had a meltdown at your engagement party, that Jack is stepping in to stabilize the company." Her eyes narrowed. "And that Amy orchestrated the whole thing. That's not—" "I know it's not true," Gabriella cut me off. "I've known you for 5 years, Ren. You don't melt down. You calculate." I exhaled slowly. "Amy told me Jack's been meeting with you." Something flickered across Gabriella's face. Surprise, maybe. "She's right. 3 times in the past month." "Why?" Gabriella leaned back in her chair. "He wanted my support for the leadership change. Said you were brilliant but overwhelmed. That Nexus needed a more market-focused approach to succeed." The betrayal stung anew. "And what did you tell him?" "I told him I'd think about it." She smiled thinly. "I've been thinking about it for 4 weeks now." Relief washed over me. "So you haven't agreed to support him?" "No, but I haven't agreed to support you either." She leaned forward, elbows on her desk. "Jack made some compelling points about your management style, Ren. You're a visionary, but you can be difficult, uncompromising. That's what makes me good at what I do. It's also what makes you vulnerable. The board respects brilliance, but they invest in stability." She tapped her fingers on the desk. "Jack knows this. He's positioning himself as the safe choice." I pulled the USB drive from my pocket and placed it between us. "Amy gave me this. Said it contains emails proving Jack's been planning this for months." Gabriella didn't touch it. "And you believe her?" "I don't know what to believe anymore." She studied me for a long moment. "What's your plan for tomorrow's meeting?" I outlined what I'd been working on since dawn. A presentation proving I was the original creator of Nexus, documentation of our growth under my leadership, projections for our next phase. When I finished, Gabriella shook her head. "That's not enough." "What do you mean?" "Jack isn't just challenging your ownership. He's challenging your vision. The board won't care who created Nexus if they believe Jack can make it more profitable." My confidence faltered. "So what do I do?" "Show them something they can't ignore." She reached for a notepad and began writing. "You need to demonstrate that your vision for Nexus is not just innovative, but commercially viable in ways Jack's approach can't match." "How do I do that in less than 24 hours? Gabriella slid the notepad toward me. On it was a name and phone number. "Call this person. Tell them I sent you. They might be able to help." I recognized the name immediately. The CEO of a major financial services platform, exactly the type of client Nexus was designed to serve. "Why would they talk to me?" "Because they've been watching your work, and because they owe me a favor." Gabriella stood up. "One more thing. I've heard Henry arrived this morning." My pulse quickened. "Amy mentioned he's flying in for the meeting." "Find him before Jack does. Henry's vote could be decisive." As I rose to leave, Gabriella caught my arm. "Ren, be careful. Jack isn't just fighting for a company. He's fighting for his reputation. Men like him become dangerous when they're cornered. Outside, the afternoon sun felt too bright, too normal for the chaos of my life. I checked my phone and found 3 missed calls from Regina and a text from an unknown number. We should talk. Henry. I stared at the message, wondering if it was a trap. Henry and I had always gotten along, but he was Jack's brother. Blood was thicker than business partnerships. I called the number Gabriella had given me first, surprised when the CEO himself answered. The conversation was brief but promising. He agreed to meet me that evening to discuss a potential partnership. Only then did I respond to Henry. Where and when? His reply came immediately. The pier, 30 minutes. The pier had been Jack and Henry's favorite spot growing up. Jack had taken me there on our third date, pointing out the bench where he and Henry had sat as kids, watching boats and dreaming of future success. As I drove there, my phone rang. Regina again. This time I answered. Where have you been? She demanded. I've been worried sick. I'm handling it, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. Handling what? Ren, you need to talk to someone. What Jack and Amy did is business, I finished for her, and I'm going to beat them at it. A pause. This doesn't sound like you. It didn't feel like me either, this cold determination, this singular focus. But maybe that was the point. The old Wren had been blindsided, betrayed by the people she trusted most. The new Wren wouldn't make the same mistake. I have to go, I told Regina. I'm meeting Henry. Jack's brother? Why? To find out whose side he's really on. As I pulled into the parking lot by the pier, I spotted Henry's lanky figure at the far end, leaning against the railing, watching the water. He turned as I approached, his expression unreadable. Hello, Wren, he said quietly. We need to talk about my brother. Henry looked different from when I'd last seen him. Thinner, with dark circles under his eyes that matched mine. The family resemblance to Jack was there in the jawline, the height, but Henry's features had always been softer, more contemplative. Where Jack commanded attention, Henry observed. How was London? I asked, keeping my distance. Lonely. He gestured to the bench nearby, the same one from Jack's stories. Can we sit? I hesitated, then nodded. The wooden slats creaked beneath us, weathered by years of salt air and countless conversations. I'm sorry about what happened, Henry said, eyes on the horizon where gray clouds gathered. I found out yesterday when Jack called to tell me about the board meeting. And you flew in immediately to support your brother. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Henry turned to face me. I flew in to find out what the hell is going on. Jack's version doesn't add up. A seagull landed nearby, watching us with beady eyes. I tossed it a piece of a granola bar from my pocket, buying time to study Henry's expression. What did Jack tell you? I finally asked. That you two had grown apart, that you'd become obsessive about Nexus, pushing for a direction that wasn't commercially viable. Henry's mouth tightened, and that Amy had nothing to do with your breakup. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. He announced their relationship at our engagement party, in front of everyone we know. Henry winced. He left that part out. I'm sure he did. I pulled the USB drive from my pocket. Amy gave me this today. Emails showing Jack's been planning to push me out for months. Henry stared at the drive. Have you looked at them? Not yet. Why not? I turned the small device over in my palm. Because once I do, there's no going back. Right now, I can still tell myself maybe it wasn't as calculated as it seems. Maybe there's some explanation that doesn't mean the last 6 years of my life were a lie. Henry was quiet for a long moment. Jack's always been good at making people see what he wants them to see. Even me. What do you mean? He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so like Jack's it made my chest ache. 2 years ago, I developed a trading algorithm for my firm in London. Jack helped me refine it. When it started showing promise, he suggested I license it to a larger company rather than develop it myself. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ocean breeze. Let me guess, the company was a shell corporation he controlled. Henry nodded. By the time I figured it out, the algorithm was generating millions, and I was getting pennies on the dollar. His laugh was hollow. Family discount, he called it. Why didn't you fight back? He's my brother. Henry shrugged, as if that explained everything. And I was embarrassed. I should have known better. We sat in silence, watching waves crash against the pier supports below. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Because I don't want to see him do to you what he did to me. Henry's eyes met mine. And because I think you might be the one person who can actually stop him. My phone buzzed. A reminder for my meeting with the CEO Gabriella had connected me with. I had 30 minutes to get across town. I have to go, I said, standing. I have a meeting that might help save Nexus. Henry stood too. The board meeting's at 9 tomorrow. How can I help? I studied him, weighing trust against caution. You still own 5% of Nexus. Which way will you vote? I haven't decided. His expression was earnest. Convince me. Come to my meeting. See what I'm building, what Jack wants to take. He hesitated only briefly before nodding. Lead the way. The offices of Fincor Solutions occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise. The CEO, Marcus, met us in the lobby himself, a courtesy that spoke volumes about Gabriella's influence. Ren Chavez, he said, shaking my hand firmly. Gabriella speaks highly of you, and this is Henry Williams, I said, before Henry could speak. My strategic advisor. If Henry was surprised by the title, he didn't show it. He shook Marcus's hand with a confident smile that reminded me again of Jack, but this time the resemblance didn't hurt. In the elevator, Henry leaned close. Strategic advisor? For tonight you are. I straightened my shoulders as the doors opened. Just follow my lead. Marcus led us to a conference room with a view of the city skyline, now dotted with lights as dusk fell. 3 other executives waited inside, along with a spread of sandwiches and coffee. We've got an hour, Marcus said, gesturing for us to sit. Show us what Nexus can do. I pulled out my laptop, heart racing. This wasn't the polished presentation I'd planned for the board meeting. This was raw, immediate, high stakes. Nexus began as an algorithm to democratize access to capital. I started, bringing up the interface, but it's evolved into something more powerful. For the next 40 minutes, I demonstrated how Nexus could transform Fincor's lending practices, showing real-time simulations using their publicly available data. The executives leaned forward, interrupting with questions that grew increasingly specific and excited. Henry watched silently until Marcus asked about implementation timelines. The beauty of Wren's architecture, Henry said suddenly, is its adaptability. We could have a pilot running within 6 weeks. I glanced at him, surprised by his grasp of the technical details. He gave me a small nod. I've been paying attention. When we finished, Marcus walked us to the elevator. This is exactly what we've been looking for. Send over the partnership agreement tomorrow, and we'll fast-track it. There's a board meeting tomorrow that might affect our leadership structure, I said carefully. I'll send the agreement afterward. Marcus frowned. We're interested in working with you specifically, Ren. Your vision for Nexus aligns with our needs. In the lobby after Marcus had gone, Henry turned to me. That was incredible. Jack never mentioned this application of the algorithm. Because he doesn't understand it, I said, the realization crystallizing as I spoke. He sees Nexus as a product to sell. I see it as a platform that can transform how capital flows. Henry's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. Jack wants to meet for dinner, says he needs to brief me before tomorrow. Our eyes met, and I saw the decision form in his. I know which way I'm voting tomorrow, he said quietly. But Jack doesn't need to know that yet. As we parted ways outside the building, Henry called after me. Ren, you should look at those emails tonight. I nodded, feeling the weight of the USB drive in my pocket. I know. It was time to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Back in my apartment, I stared at the USB drive on my coffee table. Outside, rain tapped against the windows, a steady, insistent rhythm matching my heartbeat. I'd been sitting here for 20 minutes, unable to take the final step. Just do it, I muttered, plugging the drive into my laptop. A folder appeared containing dozens of email files. I clicked on the oldest one, dated 8 months ago, around the time Jack and Amy's affair had begun, according to their confession. From Jack Williams to Amy Hoffman, subject next steps. Amy, great discussion yesterday. I agree that Ren's approach is too idealistic for market realities. The investors are getting nervous about timelines. Let's meet Thursday to discuss how to position a leadership transition. I've drafted talking points emphasizing your business development expertise and my technical oversight. Ren's brilliant, but she's too attached to the original vision. We need someone who can make the hard decisions. Jack. My hands shook as I opened the next email, then the next. The evidence was undeniable. Jack and Amy had been systematically undermining me for months, presenting themselves to investors as the adults in the room, while characterizing me as difficult and impractical. One email from 3 months ago hit particularly hard. From Jack Williams to Amy Hoffman. Subject, ring shopping. She said yes to dinner Friday. I'll do it then. The investors will love the stability narrative. Engaged founder settles down, company matures, etc. Perfect timing with the Series A closing. Keep the engagement party guest list focused on industry people. This is as much business as personal. I slammed my laptop shut, bile rising in my throat. Our engagement had been a business strategy. The party, a networking event. Every kiss, every promise, calculated moves in Jack's game. My phone rang. Regina again. This time I answered. I'm coming over, she said before I could speak. No arguments. 20 minutes later, she was at my door with a bottle of wine and a determined expression. I let her in, too exhausted to protest. You look terrible, she said, heading straight for my kitchen to find glasses. Thanks. She poured wine for both of us, then sat beside me on the couch. Have you slept at all? Not really. I gestured to my laptop. I've been reading emails proving Jack and Amy planned everything. The affair, the engagement, pushing me out, all of it. Regina's face hardened. That manipulative bastard. I was so stupid. The admission burned my throat worse than the wine. I trusted him completely. I thought he believed in Nexus, in me. You weren't stupid. You were in love. She squeezed my hand. There's a difference. I shook my head. In business, there shouldn't be. Regina studied me for a long moment. What are you going to do? Fight back. The board meeting's at 9 tomorrow. I have a presentation ready, and FinCorp is interested in a major partnership, but only if I'm leading Nexus. That's good, right? It's something. I took another sip of wine. But Jack's been working the investors for months. He's had time to poison the well. My phone buzzed with a text from Henry. Dinner with Jack done. He thinks I'm on his side. Call me. I stepped onto my balcony to make the call, leaving Regina in the living room. How was dinner? I asked when Henry answered. Enlightening. His voice was tight. Jack's confident he has the votes. He's planning to offer you a graceful exit, a consulting role with no real power. The rain had stopped, leaving the night air cool and damp. Did he mention the FinCore deal? No, and when I brought up expanding Nexus's applications, he changed the subject. Henry paused. Wren, there's something else. Amy was there. My grip tightened on the phone. At dinner? Yes, and she wasn't acting like someone who just betrayed Jack's plans. They were united. The implication hit me like a physical blow. She gave me the USB drive. Why would she do that if she's still working with him? I don't know. Maybe to gain your trust or to distract you. Henry sounded troubled. Something doesn't add up. After we hung up, I stood on the balcony, staring at the city lights blurred by lingering raindrops. What was Amy's game? Had the USB drive been a genuine attempt to help me or part of a more complex deception? When I returned inside, Regina had my laptop open. These emails, she said, looking up at me, they're damning, but they're also incomplete. What do you mean? There are gaps in the conversation threads, like someone cherry-picked which emails to include. She pointed to a particular exchange. See, Jack references a previous discussion about investor concerns, but that email isn't here. I sat beside her, scanning the screen. She was right. The emails told a clear story of betrayal, but with conspicuous holes. What if Amy's still playing me? I said slowly. What if the USB drive is bait, getting me to focus on the personal betrayal instead of preparing for tomorrow? Regina closed the laptop. Does it matter? The emails are real, even if they're selective. It matters if I'm still being manipulated. I stood up, suddenly energized by anger. I need to see the complete picture. How? You can't exactly ask Jack for his email password. A memory surfaced. Jack using my laptop one night when his was charging, entering his credentials to check email. I'd glanced away, respecting his privacy, but I might not need to, I said, opening a password manager app I rarely used. Jack saved his login on my computer once. If he never changed it, there it was, Jack's email credentials, saved months ago and forgotten. A serious security lapse on his part. Wren, Regina said warningly, that's crossing a line. She was right. Accessing his email without permission wasn't just unethical, it could be illegal. But then I remembered his words at the engagement party. It's not personal. I need to know what I'm walking into tomorrow, I said, entering his credentials. His inbox loaded, revealing hundreds of unread messages. I searched for Amy's name, filtering for recent communications. The most recent email appeared at the top, sent just hours ago. From Amy Hoffman to Jack Williams. Subject. She took the bait Wren met me for coffee. Gave her the USB drive. She has no idea about the real plan for tomorrow. Everything's set. I stared at the screen. Ice forming in my veins. Whatever game they were playing, I was still a pawn in it. Regina, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I need you to do something for me tonight. The boardroom of venture capital partners gleamed with polished mahogany and floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the city skyline. I arrived 30 minutes early, my presentation loaded on my laptop, a cup of coffee clutched in my hand to hide the trembling. Leo was already there, arranging papers at the far end of the table. You came, he said, looking up with surprise. Did you think I wouldn't? Jack seemed certain you'd back out. Leo gestured to the chair beside him. He told the board you sent an email withdrawing from consideration. My pulse quickened. I sent no such email. I figured as much. Leo slid a folder toward me. Meeting agenda. Jack's scheduled to present first, then open the floor for a vote. There's no slot for you to speak. They can't vote without hearing both sides. They can if they believe you've withdrawn. Leo lowered his voice as footsteps approached. The investors are business people, Ren. They hate drama and uncertainty. Jack's promising stability. The door opened and board members began filing in. 6 men and 2 women in expensive suits, carrying tablets and coffee cups. They nodded politely in my direction, but gravitated toward the other end of the table, where empty seats flanked the chair reserved for Jack. At 8:55, Gabriella arrived, catching my eye with a subtle nod, before taking a seat midway down the table. Neutral territory, a statement in itself. At precisely 90, Jack walked in with Amy beside him. He faltered momentarily when he saw me, then recovered with a practiced smile. "Ren," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "I didn't expect you today. I received your email about stepping back." "I sent no email, Jack." My voice was steady, louder than I'd intended. The room fell silent. Jack's smile tightened. "We can discuss that privately. For now, let's keep to the agenda." He took his place at the head of the table, Amy sitting to his right. The message was clear: a united front, the new leadership team. The lead investor, a silver-haired man named Robert, called the meeting to order. "We're here to discuss Nexus's leadership structure moving forward. Jack has proposed a reorganization that he believes will accelerate market penetration." Jack stood, clicking through his presentation with confident ease. Charts appeared on the screen showing projected growth under his leadership. He spoke about market realities and investor confidence, painting himself as the pragmatic choice. While Wren created the initial algorithm and deserves full credit for that innovation, Nexus has evolved beyond its academic origins, Jack said, not looking in my direction. "We need leadership focused on commercial applications and investor returns." Amy nodded along, occasionally adding comments about marketing strategies and client acquisition. They were polished, prepared, and completely in sync. When Jack finished, Robert turned to the board. "Questions before we move to a vote?" This was it, my last chance. I stood up. "I have something to say." Robert frowned. "Ms. Chavez, according to the agenda?" "The agenda was created under false pretenses," I interrupted. "I never withdrew from consideration, and I have evidence that Jack and Amy have been deliberately undermining Nexus's potential to serve their personal interests." The room tensed. Jack's face hardened. "This is exactly the kind of emotional reaction that concerns us about Wren's leadership. Business decisions require objectivity. Is this objective enough for you?" I connected my laptop to the projector, bringing up the emails I'd found last night. Not just the ones Amy had given me, but the complete threads showing their full plan. These emails show that Jack and Amy have been systematically misrepresenting Nexus's capabilities to investors, I said, scrolling through the evidence. They've positioned the algorithm as a simple lending tool when it's capable of much more. I clicked to the next slide, the partnership agreement from FinCor, signed by Marcus this morning. Regina had picked it up at 7 a.m. and rushed it to me. FinCor is prepared to implement Nexus as an enterprise solution, a deal worth 3 times our current valuation. But they'll only move forward if I remain as CEO. Murmurs rippled through the room. Jack stood up, his composure cracking. "This is a stunt. FinCor has been in our pipeline for months." "Actually, no," came a voice from the doorway. Henry walked in, followed by Marcus from FinCor. FinCor approached Wren directly because they recognized the full potential of her vision. Jack's face paled. "Henry, what are you doing?" "The right thing. Finally." Henry took a seat beside me. "I've seen what Nexus can really do, and I've seen what you're willing to do to control it." Marcus addressed the board directly. "We've evaluated multiple solutions for our capital access initiative. Nexus is the only platform that meets our requirements, specifically the version Wren demonstrated." Robert looked between Jack and me, clearly reassessing. "This partnership would significantly impact our growth projections." There's more, I said, bringing up one final email, the one I'd found last night that had made everything clear. From Jack Williams to Amy Hoffman. Subject: Contingency Plan. If Ren doesn't take the consulting offer, we'll need to move to Plan B. I've already spoken with Meridian Tech about acquiring our IP. They're prepared to make an offer contingent on my leadership. We'd both receive executive positions in their fintech division. The algorithm would be repurposed for their consumer lending platform, more limited than Ren's vision, but immediately profitable. Make sure all communications about this remain off company servers. The boardroom erupted in concerned conversation. Selling to Meridian would mean substantial returns for early investors, but would effectively kill Nexus as an independent platform. Jack slammed his hand on the table. That email was private. She accessed my personal account illegally. Is it true? Robert demanded. Were you planning to sell to Meridian without board approval? Jack's silence was answer enough. I looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes. I created Nexus to democratize access to capital, not just for consumers, but for businesses that have been systematically excluded from traditional financing. Jack sees it as a product to sell. I see it as a mission. My voice grew stronger with each word. You invested in that mission, and in me. I'm asking you to do that again today. The room fell silent. Amy stared at the table, not meeting anyone's eyes. Jack remained standing, his face a mask of controlled fury. Robert cleared his throat. I think we need to reconsider today's agenda. Before any vote occurs, the board requires time to review this new information. Take all the time you need, I said, gathering my things. Nexus is worth getting right. As I turned to leave, Jack stepped into my path. You won't win this, he whispered, low enough that only I could hear. You're not built for this kind of fight. I met his gaze steadily, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the man I'd loved, but the man he truly was. That's where you're wrong, Jack, I replied. I'm exactly built for this. You just never bothered to notice. I walked out with my head high, Henry and Gabriella falling into step beside me. Behind us, the boardroom door closed on Jack and Amy's shattered plans. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time since that terrible night at the engagement party, I knew with absolute certainty that I would win. The board's decision came 3 days later. I was in my apartment, surrounded by sticky notes and flowcharts mapping out Nexus's future, when Gabriella called. It's unanimous, she said without preamble. You're staying as CEO. Jack and Amy are out. I sank onto my couch, legs suddenly weak. All of them voted for me? Even Robert in the end. The FinCorp deal was too good to pass up. She paused. Jack didn't take it well. I wouldn't expect him to. After hanging up, I stood at my window watching the city below, waiting for the triumph to wash over me. Instead, I felt hollow, vindicated but empty. I'd won, but at what cost? 6 years of my life, my faith in my own judgment, the future I'd planned. My phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from Regina, Henry, and others who'd stood by me. I responded mechanically, going through the motions of celebration while feeling strangely detached. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. I opened it to find Leo standing there, a bottle of champagne in hand. I thought you might want to celebrate, he said, holding up the bottle. I stepped back to let him in. I'm not sure celebration is the right word. Leo set the champagne on my counter, unopened. I get it. Victory can feel complicated. Is that why you're here? To celebrate my complicated victory? He shook his head. I'm here to show you something. He pulled out his phone and brought up an email. This came to the investment committee an hour ago. I took the phone, scanning the message. It was from a major international finance consortium based in Singapore, expressing interest in implementing Nexus across their network of community banks in Southeast Asia. They reached out after hearing about the FinCorp partnership, Leo explained. This could be huge, Ren, exactly the kind of application you've always talked about, bringing capital to underserved markets. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of genuine excitement. How did they hear about us so quickly? Leo smiled. That's the other reason I'm here. I may have sent them our pitch deck last week. I raised an eyebrow. Before the board decision, I believed in your vision even when Jack was making his case. Leo shrugged. Some bets are worth taking. After Leo left, I returned to my flowcharts with renewed purpose, adding the Singapore possibility to my expansion plans. Around midnight, another knock interrupted my work. I opened the door to find Amy standing in the hallway, her usual polish replaced by obvious exhaustion. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice small. Every instinct told me to slam the door in her face. Instead, I stepped aside. Amy walked to the center of my living room and turned to face me. "I've been trying to figure out what to say to you for days. Sorry would be a start. Would it matter?" She looked around at the sticky notes covering my walls. "You've already moved on? Is that what you came here to say? That I've moved on too quickly from your betrayal?" Amy flinched. "I came to tell you that Jack's leaving the country. He took a position with a firm in London." "Good for him." "And I'm not going with him." She met my eyes directly. "I never was. That was another lie he told, that we had some grand future together." I crossed my arms. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to understand something." Amy's composure cracked. "What I did was unforgivable, but it wasn't all a lie. I did care about you. I still do. You have a strange way of showing it." "I know." She wiped at her eyes. "When Jack first approached me about Nexus, I was flattered. He made me feel important, included in ways you never did." "So this is my fault?" "No." Amy shook her head firmly. "It's mine. I chose to betray you instead of talking to you. I chose to believe I deserved more recognition than I was getting. I chose Jack." She reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. "This contains all the marketing research and client contacts I've developed for Nexus. It belongs to the company, to you." I took it without comment. "I'm leaving tech," she continued, "moving back to Chicago to work in my family's business." I should have felt satisfaction at her retreat, but instead found myself asking, "Is that what you want?" Amy laughed bitterly. "What I wanted to be special, to matter. I thought Jack saw that in me, but he was just using me to get to you." She moved toward the door. "Turns out I'm not special after all." As she reached for the handle, I found myself saying, "You're wrong." Amy turned, confusion crossing her face. "You are special," I said, surprising myself. "You're brilliant at what you do. That's why your betrayal hurt so much, because I valued you, as a colleague, as a friend." "Ren, I'm not forgiving you," I clarified. "I don't know if I ever can, but don't diminish yourself because of Jack. He's taken enough from both of us." After Amy left, I returned to my work with clearer focus. The sticky notes on my wall no longer represented just business strategies. They were pieces of the life I was reclaiming and reshaping. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. The Nexus logo glowed from the reception area wall, unchanged despite everything else that had transformed. I walked past Jack's former office, already being cleared out, and into mine. Gabriella was waiting for me, reviewing documents at my conference table. "You're early," I observed. "Singapore called. They want to move quickly." She handed me a folder. "I've drafted an implementation timeline." I flipped through the pages, impressed by the thoroughness. You've been busy. So have you. She nodded toward my computer. The team's waiting for your direction. What's our first move? I sat at my desk, feeling the weight of the decision. This was the moment Jack had tried to steal from me, the chance to lead Nexus into its next chapter. Schedule a full team meeting, I said. It's time everyone understood what we're really building here. As Gabriella left to make arrangements, I opened my laptop and found an email from Henry. Heading back to London today, not to work with Jack. He can find his own algorithm to steal. Call if you need anything. Proud of you. I smiled, typing a quick reply, thanking him for his support, then turned to the task ahead. The Singapore proposal needed refinement. FinCorp was waiting for implementation details. The team needed reassurance after the leadership turmoil. My phone buzzed with a text from Regina. Dinner tonight to celebrate? I hesitated, then replied, Rain check, working late. Her response came immediately. Work will still be there tomorrow. Don't forget to live your life too. The words struck me with unexpected force. For weeks, I'd been consumed by survival and vindication. Now that I'd achieved both, what did I want beyond Nexus? I didn't have an answer yet, but for the first time since that terrible night, I felt the freedom to ask the question. When the team gathered in the conference room an hour later, I stood before them, not as the woman who'd been betrayed, not as the founder fighting for control, but simply as myself, Ren Chavez, scarred but stronger, with a vision worth fighting for and the courage to see it through. Let's begin, I said, and opened the door to whatever came next.